before I talk, we should give a round of applause to Lee Miller. I don't know anyone else whose public library puts on a TEDx event, and I'm pretty proud of that. I would like also for us to honor Regan de Victoria, who's unable to be here tonight because of a death in the family, but who helped in large part organize this event. So how about a round of applause? So I'm still recovering from my first term of service in the Montana legislature. And since I've been back, we met for 87 days. We met 6 days a week until we had met for 87 times, and then they decided our work was done, and we went home. And so, since I've been back, I get asked everywhere I go, literally, I am not exaggerating, everywhere I go, what surprised you the most about being in the legislature? And I love that question. It's a great question, it's really easy to answer. I was surprised every single one of those 87 days by the same exact thing, over and over and over again. I was surprised that there is an ongoing attack on human beings going on in politics right now. An attack on people. You and me and our families. Let me tell you what I mean about that. I saw bills that restrict your access to a free and adequate public education. I saw bills that keep you from being made whole after you've had a serious illness or an accident. I saw attacks on workers' rights. Bills that make it easier for you to be completely illegally fired from your job, for example. And then after something completely illegal has happened to you, I saw bills that restrict your access to our court system. Of course, I saw bills to increase your taxes. I saw bills that restrict your access to our public land, the land that we own together. I saw bills that restrict your access to the quality and quantity of clean water that you need to survive. I am literally talking about a full-on assault on people. You know, it's bad news. Right? I'm going to spend the next few minutes trying to convince you that you can fix this. You can stop this war on people. And it's real easy. All you have to do is show up and say yes. And it's about time that you did. I know that you know someone, or maybe you have said, those politicians, they don't come from where I come from, they don't get me, they're a different kind of breed altogether. There's nothing I could do to make a difference. The system's too big, it can't be changed. I have said that before. I know people are unhappy with our situation. People are feeling disenfranchised, and people are seriously apathetic. They're not even participating in the most basic way. In Butte-Silver-Bow, our voter turnout in the last election was 62%. There were 100 people who were able to get seats tonight. That means that out of you 100 people, 38 of you did not even bother to vote. You're able to. Nothing prevents you from it. You're probably registered. But you did not exercise one of your most basic rights in order to have a voice in the decisions that affect you every single day. When you combine that kind of apathy with this kind of inaction, you're sending a message to the people in power that says, you don't know me, you don't know where I come from, I'm not even going to try to start a dialogue to change that, because it would not make a difference anyhow. But I really hope that someday, somewhere, somehow, somebody does something to fix this mess. But it's not going to be easy. One of the rules of this TEDx event is to not use polarizing us versus them language. So here's my disclaimer. I am not using us versus them language. I am just saying that the people who are making the decisions that affect you every single day are operating in a vacuum because you're not participating. And I know that one of the main arguments to participate is that I couldn't make a difference. A person like me could not infiltrate that system. So I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about a little girl. Her parents were divorced by the time she was 4. She was raised by her mom, who struggled with often completely debilitating mental illness. They were on government assistance. They bought their groceries with food stamps. They had their water disconnected, their phone disconnected, their heat, their electricity disconnected several times. She and her brother saw their dad on Tuesdays and Thursdays and every other Saturday, but they had to walk to the post office, the mailbox, they had to walk to the mailbox at the end of the street because he couldn't drive to the house because of the restraining order against him. Her grandpa and her uncle died in their jail cells after being picked up on charges related to their alcohol abuse. She has an aunt that is, at this moment, serving a sentence in federal women's prison on charges related to her heroin addiction. Her brother shot himself playing Russian roulette when he was 16 years old at a party. Both of her parents had dropped out of high school and gotten their GEDs. Every single woman in her family had had babies and maybe or not was married in their early 20s. All she wanted was more. She didn't know how, she didn't know why, but she knew there had to be something more. And I bet that's a feeling that a lot of you have also. There has got to be more than this. She asked her mom, how are we gonna pay for college? I mean, we're talking like at the age of 6 or 7. Mom, how are we gonna afford to pay for college? Her mom said, we're not. If you would have told that little girl that she was gonna grow up to be a state representative someday, she would have had a really hard time believing. You've probably guessed by now that I'm talking about me. I tell this story for a couple reasons, and I know that you're sitting out there and you're feeling so sorry for me right now. What a horrible upbringing. I felt that way too. I felt so sorry for myself until I started teaching. And it didn't take me very long of teaching at all to realize that that story that I just told you is actually a pretty common story. That story actually represents the stories of a large population of Montana kids. The other reason I tell this story is that people have this feeling that you have to have some kind of pedigree to get into politics. That just a regular person can't do that. And clearly, that is not true. So, we know people aren't happy. None of us are really happy with what's going on in politics. And we've shown that people aren't participating. And I am living proof that you don't have to be anything special to do this. So I guess the last argument would be that government is somehow inaccessible to the common person. That there are these walls built up to keep you from getting into the system. I'm going to tell you another story, and it's going to be about me, because that's what I know. When I first got my teaching credentials, all I wanted was a job at high school. I knew that I would be completely happy living my life for the rest of my work days teaching at High. But I wasn't able to get a job right away, so I took a couple of jobs while I was waiting to get high school. One of those was at a school 65 miles away, and so I didn't want to move. I drove 65 miles each way every day for 3 years, and finally got a job at High School. And when I got that job, I was blessed with this gift of 3 extra hours a day. And all right, well, I should probably do something with that extra time. So I did two things. I started going to my union meetings, and I started going to central committee meetings. Let me tell you what that means. Each party, and I have two colors up here to represent the two parties, but I should have a little disclaimer that says, if you wanted another color up here to start your own central committee for another party, it is literally as easy as filling out a one-page form and sending it to the state of Montana. So central committees are the local groups of people who do the local work of politics for each party. I saw a community announcement in the paper that said there was going to be a central committee meeting. And so I showed up. As soon as I walked in, I saw someone that I worked with, thank God. I had never spoken 2 words to this person. I had no idea that he was involved in politics. And I sat down next to he and his wife. Happened to be election night for the central committee. And I had no idea what they were even talking about. His wife leaned over to me and said, "Hey, Amanda, we're gonna nominate you for state committee woman." And I said, "I have no idea what that is." He said, "Yeah, don't worry, it's really easy. Anybody could do it. We'll teach you how." So I said yes. I was able to go home from my very first central committee meeting and tell my husband, "I'm a state committee woman now." I'm very proud of myself. And it was easy, and they did help me. And it was something that anyone in this room, anyone you know could do. There's not a lot to it. It was still a really rewarding experience. The second thing I said I did was go to my union meetings. That little girl whose picture you saw, she grew up with kind of a high esteem for unions because she wouldn't have had any fillings in her teeth or glasses on her face if she wouldn't have been able to get this magical form from her dad that said laborers union insurance at the top. And anytime she needed access to health care, this magic piece of paper got her what she needed. So when they had a beginning of the year meeting for new teachers, I showed up and I kept going. They gave me a job on the executive board, and they taught me how to do it, and it was easy. And I kept going. So, in the next election cycle, when there were open legislative seats across the state, a grassroots coalition of organizations met together to try to pool ideas, what candidates across the state can we find to fill these legislative seats. They actually called my union president, Mike, and they said, "Mike, you've got a great name, your family's been in the community forever, everybody knows you, you'd be a shoo-in. Would you please run for this legislative seat?" I said, "No way! I could never do that. I'm not in politics, I don't know what I'm doing." So they said, all right, fine. Do you know anyone who would? And I said, "Yeah, there's this new girl, she's been showing up. Her name's Amanda, she seems like she says yes to everything." So they called. Guess what I said? He said yes. Within 1 week, I had been interviewed as a potential candidate for the Montana legislature. Within 6 months, I had been trained on how to win a campaign. Within 1 year, I had won a primary for the Montana House of Representatives, and I was unopposed in the general, so I was in. The only difference between Mike and me is that he said no, and I said yes. So now I'm a Montana State Representative. You don't have to be from a political family. There are no walls keeping you from participating. You don't need someone's permission to do this. You have what it takes because you live your life and you're you. You're qualified to make the decisions that affect you and your family every day. We are the government of the people, by the people, for the people. And when they wrote people, they meant you. People people is you. I'm not saying you need to run for the legislature. There are hundreds of local opportunities to make a difference by getting involved. Pick something you're interested in. Pick something that's close to your heart. Maybe it's your parent-teacher organization. Maybe it's your school board. Maybe it's the county commission. Maybe it's the sewer board. I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. You can't make a difference if you're not involved. First of all of you should be voting. And after that, I promise you, all you need to do to make a difference is to show up and say yes.